The sound of sirens cut through the muggy afternoon as a crowd swelled outside the courthouse. News cameras and smartphones flashed, fighting for the best angle. Uniformed police formed a line, their faces set, trying to keep angry protesters back. "Let her go!" someone shouted, voice shaking with fury. "This is America, not some dictatorship." Signs waved in the air, some reading "Hero, not a traitor," others twisted with hate. At the center of it all, Lieutenant Commander Amara Lewis stepped down from the black SUV, flanked by 2 armed MPs. Her dress blues were spotless, medals shining across her chest, and the gold trident on her collar glinted beneath the clouds. Even in handcuffs, she walked with her chin high, back straight, every step calm. Her wrists were red where the cuffs bit in, but she didn't flinch. A protester surged forward, yelling, "You're only arresting her 'cause she's black." Cameras snapped, catching the pain in her mother's eyes behind the police tape. Amara looked out over the chaos, eyes meeting the young black girl in the crowd who stared back, wide-eyed, clutching her mother's hand. "Is that the lady from TV?" the girl whispered. The news anchor's voice crackled from a van nearby. "We are live at the federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., where Lieutenant Commander Lewis, the first black woman Navy SEAL in U.S. history, is being brought to stand trial on charges that have shocked the entire country." The officer at Amara's side jerked the cuffs tighter, ignoring her wince. Reporters shouted questions. "Did you really betray your country, Commander? Why did you do it? What do you want to say to America?" The press surged closer, and a white protester spat at the ground near her feet. "Lock her up." But Amara's gaze never wavered. She searched the faces in the crowd, finding veterans with flags on their jackets, angry college kids with bullhorns, and old men who turned away when her eyes met theirs. As the courthouse doors loomed, a white-haired officer paused to salute her, quickly dropping his hand as the cameras spun his way. She reached the marble steps, 1,000 memories hitting her in a wave. Standing at attention for the anthem, burying friends in Arlington, watching her father hang his uniform by the door for the last time. All she'd ever wanted was to serve a country that saw her as more than the color of her skin. But today, with the world watching, it felt like America itself was ready to judge her. Not for what she'd done, but for who she was. "Hi, my name is Malik. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, please hit like and subscribe right now. Your support helps us shine a light on real injustice." Inside the courthouse, the noise faded to a low, nervous hum. The heavy doors closed behind Amara, shutting out the chants and camera flashes. Suddenly, the world was quieter, almost cold. The marble floors gleamed under the harsh lights. Military police walked her down a hallway lined with portraits of old white judges, their eyes watching every step. Her boots echoed, slow and steady, while the guards' grips on her arms remained tight. At every checkpoint, she heard their whispers, "That's her. Can you believe it? A black woman, a SEAL." Someone tried to hide a smirk. Another just looked away. Amara remembered the first time she put on her uniform, the quiet pride in her mother's eyes, the handshake from her father. Back then, she thought her country's respect would be simple, earned by sweat, discipline, and courage. But she'd learned early. No matter how many medals you wore, some people only saw what they wanted to see. She caught her reflection in the glass. Jaw set, eyes hard, hair pulled back by regulations she'd followed for years. The orange jumpsuit they'd given her for booking was gone, but the marks it left on her skin lingered. She forced her shoulders back. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her broken. The bailiff led her into the courtroom. It was packed, the air thick with tension. Navy brass and government lawyers sat on one side. On the other, the press scribbled in notepads, sketch artists drawing quickly. Her SEAL teammates, Jackson, Miles, Torres, sat 3 rows back, stone-faced. They didn't smile or nod. but their eyes followed her every move. Amara remembered nights in the desert, their jokes, the trust forged in darkness. She walked past a row of jurors, some staring, some avoiding her gaze. One older woman mouthed, "Good luck," eyes bright with something like sympathy. The judge, a stern woman with sharp glasses, studied Amara in silence before glancing at her file. Her public defender was there, clutching papers, sweat beading at his hairline. He whispered, "We'll get through this. Don't say anything unless you have to." Amara barely nodded. She'd fought battles with worse odds before. Reporters clicked away, already drafting headlines. Most didn't care about the truth, just the scandal. A low voice behind her muttered, "She's just another thug in uniform." Amara ignored it. She was used to it. The judge banged the gavel. Court is now in session. The United States versus Lieutenant Commander Amara Lewis. As she took her seat at the defense table, Amara looked up. Past the flags and the stairs, up to the old carved words above the judge's bench. Equal justice under law. She wondered, just for a moment, if those words meant her too. The prosecutor stood, his suit perfect, his tone icy as he turned to the jury. "Lieutenant Commander Lewis," he announced, "betrayed national security, risking the lives of American soldiers and exposing secrets that should have died on the battlefield." Each word echoed, landing heavy in the silence. Amara's lawyer tried to object, but the judge cut him off. "We will hear the government's case first, counselor. Sit down." He sank back in his chair, defeated. Amara didn't look at him, her jaw clenched, her eyes fixed on the prosecutor. He paced in front of the jury box, waving a folder stamped "Top Secret." "The evidence is clear," he said, showing photos and files. She disobeyed direct orders, accessed classified information, and released it to unauthorized parties. In doing so, she endangered not just her team, but every American in uniform. Some jurors watched, nodding. Others just looked down. A ripple of whispers moved through the gallery. Someone in the press section muttered, "They'll never let a black woman off." A Navy captain frowned, whispering to his aide, "You know they're making an example of her." The judge didn't react, flipping through papers, barely meeting Amara's gaze. The prosecutor leaned in, his voice dropping. "Why would a woman with such a record do this?" he said, turning to the crowd. "Why break her oath?" His eyes landed on Amara, and for a moment, something like contempt flashed there. "She made her own rules," he said, "and now the law will make an example." A few in the crowd murmured approval. The guards at Amara's side tightened their grip as if expecting her to lash out. She sat perfectly still, not giving them the satisfaction. Her defender tried to rise. "Your Honor, this case—" "Sit down," the judge snapped. "You'll have your turn." He sank back, his voice barely a whisper. "They want you silent. Don't let them break you." The room felt colder now, every stare a blade. Amara's mind flashed to her last mission. Gunfire, chaos, orders changing in her earpiece. She remembered the moment she realized something was wrong. The voices telling her to leave people behind. Her hands tightened into fists beneath the table. Reporters wrote furiously, catching every word. "Black SEAL faces decades in prison." One headline already typed out. A white juror's eyes narrowed, suspicion winning out over doubt. The judge's voice finally broke the spell. "Does the accused wish to enter a plea?" Amara's lawyer started to speak, but Amara stopped him with a look. She spoke, voice steady. "Not guilty, Your Honor." A gasp ran through the room. The prosecutor smirked, as if he'd been expecting anything else. Amara sat back, ready for the storm. This fight was bigger than her. It always had been. If you're still watching, drop a comment below. What would you do in this situation? And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that matter. A sudden commotion rippled through the packed courtroom. Heavy doors at the back slammed open. All eyes turned as a tall, broad-shouldered man in full admiral's dress strode in, ribbons and stars shining. His walk had the quiet authority of someone used to giving orders in war zones. The guards snapped to attention, confusion flashing across their faces. For a split second, the entire room seemed to stop breathing. The judge's gavel hovered midair. "Identify yourself," she demanded, though her voice had lost some of its steel. The Admiral's voice carried easily. Steady, low, impossible to ignore. "Admiral Richard Hayes, United States Navy. I am here on urgent business regarding Lieutenant Commander Amara Lewis and this trial." The prosecutor tensed, trying to regain control. "This is highly irregular." "With respect, Counselor," Admiral Hayes interrupted. "Irregular is the only reason I'm here." He turned to the judge, meeting her eyes with a level gaze. "Your Honor, before you proceed, I request a private session in chambers. This concerns matters of national security and the integrity of this court." A restless wave moved through the gallery. Amara didn't move, but something in her shoulders loosened. A signal so small only her closest teammates would notice. The judge studied the Admiral, her eyes narrowing. For a moment, a silent standoff played out between power and protocol. Finally, she nodded. "Court will recess for 30 minutes. Everyone except counsel, the defendant, and Admiral Hayes will vacate." Reporters protested, but the bailiffs started clearing the room. Amara's lawyer leaned close, whispering, "That's your old commanding officer, isn't it?" Amara nodded just once, not taking her eyes off the Admiral. As the room emptied, Admiral Hayes approached, metals clinking softly with every step. "Commander Lewis, you've caused quite a storm." There was a flicker of a smile, quickly gone. "But I'm here because someone had to stand up for the truth." The judge gestured them all toward her chambers. Once the door closed, the atmosphere changed. More honest, more dangerous. The Admiral laid a thick folder on the table. "Your Honor, what you've been told is a lie. The so-called evidence against Commander Lewis is not the whole story." He opened the file, spreading out satellite images, encrypted messages, and field reports. 2 years ago in Afghanistan, Commander Lewis's team was sent on a Black Ops mission, one with classified objectives. What she found was not an enemy stronghold, but a covert detention site run by private contractors. Civilians, women, children, families were being held, experimented on, used as test subjects. Amara Lewis risked her life and disobeyed direct orders to save them. The judge's hands trembled on the table. The prosecutor shook his head. "Stubborn. You expect us to believe the Navy would cover up war crimes?" Admiral Hayes' voice was cold. "I expect you to see the proof." He slid over photos, children with medical scars, Americans and Afghans alike. Amara's eyes burned as memories flashed. Sneaking through darkness, lifting frightened children, fighting not terrorists, but betrayal from her own side. The Admiral looked directly at the judge. Commander Lewis didn't commit treason. She honored the real oath to protect the innocent. If you go through with this trial, you're letting the guilty walk free and sacrificing the only person who tried to do the right thing. The judge sat back, rattled. The prosecutor scowled, looking at the evidence but saying nothing. Amara stayed silent, shoulders squared, the fight still burning in her eyes. Admiral Hayes stood, turning to her. "No matter what happens now, you're not alone in this." He offered a nod, not an order, but respect. The judge pressed her lips together. "We'll reconvene shortly." As they filed out, Amara glanced at the Admiral, gratitude flickering across her face. For the first time since her arrest, hope, small and dangerous, stirred in her chest. Court resumed, but the atmosphere was different now. Heavy with tension and suspicion. The gallery refilled with officials, SEALs, reporters, and civilians, all hungry for answers. Admiral Hayes remained at the defense table, his presence commanding attention. Amara sat taller, her hands folded, eyes sharp. The judge's voice was lower, tinged with unease. This court has been presented with new evidence regarding Operation Iron Shield. She eyed the prosecutor, who looked rattled for the first time. Mr. Stanford, do you have anything to say before we proceed? The prosecutor hesitated, glancing nervously at the Admiral's folder. Your Honor, I believe these so-called documents are an attempt to distract from the very real national security risks posed by Commander Lewis's actions. He tried to regain his rhythm. We must not let emotional testimony outweigh the hard evidence. But the judge interrupted. I have seen enough hard evidence for today. The integrity of this court and the lives affected by this case demand we hear every side. She looked at Amara. Commander, you may speak. A hush fell as Amara stood. Her voice was clear, calm, and strong. 2 years ago, my team received orders to surveil a suspected insurgent compound. When we arrived, we found civilians, women, children, American contractors, locked in filthy cells, many showing signs of medical abuse. My orders were to observe and report, but the people inside were dying. I couldn't walk away and leave them, so I disobeyed. I led a rescue, got as many out as I could. I knew there'd be consequences, but I couldn't watch innocent people die just to protect someone else's secrets. The judge studied her closely, emotion flickering behind her glasses. Admiral Hayes backed her up, laying out files and encrypted reports for the record. These documents confirm Commander Lewis's account. The operation was misrepresented from the start. There was a cover-up. Certain military and government officials prioritized their careers and contracts over justice. A ripple of shock moved through the room. The gallery whispered, some in disbelief, some in quiet support. The judge signaled for order. Enough. We will hear from every witness. First came Amara's teammates, Miles, Torres, and Jackson, each confirming the story. She risked her life for civilians. She broke the rules, but she did the right thing, Jackson said, voice steady. Then, a whistleblower from the contractor's side testified, voice trembling. They paid us to keep quiet. Anyone who spoke up disappeared. The senator who'd pushed for Amara's arrest tried to object, his face pale, but the judge ignored him. This court will consider all evidence, no matter who it threatens. As files and testimony piled up, the story shifted from accusation to exposure. Racism, greed, and corruption weren't just the backdrop. They were the heart of the case. Amara watched the jury, seeing doubt and shame growing in their faces. For the first time since her arrest, she felt the tide turning. The truth was finally being heard. The court felt like it was holding its breath as the judge sifted through testimony after testimony, every word chipping away at the story Amara's enemies had tried so hard to sell. The mood in the gallery changed. The bravado from the prosecutor faded. The senator looked rattled. Even the press, once eager for a scandal, now leaned in, sensing the story had flipped. Amara's SEAL teammates returned to the stand, voices stronger. She saved those people and she saved us, Miles told the court. She put her life on the line when command said to stand down. Torres nodded. We followed her because she had honor. If you punish her for that, you're punishing every soldier who does the right thing when the system fails. The words rang out, honest and raw. A government investigator took the stand next. The files Admiral Hayes submitted were verified. The abuses happened, and there was a coordinated effort to hide them. Evidence was destroyed, witnesses silenced, and Commander Lewis was set up as a scapegoat because she wouldn't stay quiet. The judge listened, her face hard but her hands trembling. The prosecutor tried one last desperate move. This is about national security, not race, not politics. But the defense was ready. National security doesn't mean covering up crimes against innocent people, Amara's lawyer shot back. And it doesn't mean silencing a black woman who put everything on the line to protect lives. A video played on the court monitors. Shaky helmet cam footage of Amara and her team breaching the compound, prisoners reaching out through cell bars, Amara lifting a crying girl into her arms as gunfire echoed. The court was silent. Even the guards watched, unmoving. The images were undeniable. Outside, word of the trial's turn spread fast. Veterans groups, civil rights leaders, and regular citizens gathered, chanting Amara's name. Social media lit up. Hashtag Justice for Amara trended across the USA and Canada. Back inside, the judge called for a recess. Amara sat, finally letting herself breathe. Admiral Hayes took her hand. "You did the right thing," he said, voice thick. "No matter what comes next, don't forget it." When the session resumed, the prosecutor offered a plea deal. Time served in exchange for silence. Amara didn't even look at him. "I won't plead guilty to saving lives," she said simply. The judge's gavel rang out. "This court finds there is not enough evidence to proceed with the charges against Commander Lewis." A gasp, then applause from the gallery. But the judge wasn't done. She turned to the senator and prosecutor. "This court is also forwarding evidence of misconduct, corruption, and obstruction for immediate investigation." Murmurs filled the courtroom. Amara closed her eyes, letting the relief wash over her. Knowing she'd won more than her freedom, she'd forced the system to see the truth. And for a moment, respect filled the space where suspicion had once lived. The courtroom emptied slowly, reporters still whispering and snapping photos as the last officials filed out. Amara sat at the defense table, her uniform slightly wrinkled but her back as straight as ever. The echo of the judge's ruling still lingered in the high ceilings. Freedom, but not forgiveness. For a moment, she stayed seated, eyes closed, feeling the weight of every battle, every loss, every moment she had doubted herself. It was over, at least this part. Admiral Hayes came over, standing quietly beside her. "You were braver than all of us, Amara. I wish I'd stood up sooner." There was an awkward, grateful pause, the kind that only comes when so much is left unsaid. "You have my respect, and my apology." He offered his hand, and she shook it, firm. "You showed them the truth," she said, voice low. "That's what matters." Her SEAL teammates gathered by the door. Jackson clapped her on the shoulder, grinning with real pride for the first time in months. "You still owe me dinner," he joked, trying to lighten the air. Miles and Torres laughed, the tension breaking just a little. "We knew you'd make it," Miles said, softer. "We'll always have your back." As Amara left the courtroom, a wave of supporters waited outside. Veterans, activists, ordinary people who'd watched the trial and saw themselves in her fight. Some held handmade signs: "Justice for Amara," "Protect Black Heroes," "Do the Right Thing." An older woman handed her a single white rose. "Thank you," she whispered. "You made us proud." Amara nodded, her throat tight. She looked around at the faces, black, white, young, old, all standing for something better than silence. A reporter pushed a microphone forward. "Commander Lewis, what's next for you?" Amara glanced at her mother in the crowd, tears shining in her eyes. "I'm going home," she answered quietly. "And I'm going to keep fighting for those who don't have a voice." The sun had slipped low over the city. Amara walked down the courthouse steps, each footfall heavy and light all at once. She paused at the flagpole, the stars and stripes rippling in the evening breeze. For years, that flag had meant sacrifice and struggle, sometimes hope, sometimes heartbreak. Now she saw it as a challenge. The country wasn't perfect, but it could change. It had to. She stood there for a moment, closing her eyes as the crowd cheered. She let herself feel the pain, the pride, the stubborn joy of surviving what was meant to break her. The scars would last, but so would the courage. Amara took her mother's hand, squeezing it tight. "You always told me to make them see me for who I am," she said, voice trembling just a little. Her mother smiled, proud and fierce. "And you did, baby. You did." As Amara walked away from the courthouse, her head held high. She left more than her chains behind. She left the world a little different than she'd found it. Proof that justice, no matter how late, was worth every fight. If you believe in second chances and breaking barriers, share this story. To viewers in the USA, UK, and Canada, your voice matters. Together, we can change the world.